that surpasses all understanding. Give us the strength to make the right decisions, not for our personal gain, but for the people that we represent here in the state of Alabama. Father, when you do these things, we'll carefully give your name all the praise and honor. It's in Christ Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chairman Garrett.
Here.
Representative Hill. Representative Drummond. Representative Almond. Representative Baker. Representative Chestnut. Representative Collins. Representative Colvin. Representative Daniels. Representative Ellis. Representative Faulkner. Representative Lawrence. Representative Lovern. Representative Stubbs. Representative Wood. 8 members in the row. We have 4.
Thank you. I understand Representative Almond has a bill in another committee, so we should see her shortly. Thank you very much. Any guests we need to recognize? Representative Wood, you had some guests?
So I'm honored today to have 2 ladies here. They competed in the Amazing Shake competition, and they are the winners, and they won a week with me. Woo-woo! So they won more than that. But when I call your name, if you'll stand up, please. So I have Gabriella, better known as Gabby, and Ava Claire, better known as AC, and their educator that did the program, Miss Sarah Maddox. So thank y'all.
Thank you. Welcome. Representative Colvin.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have several guests here today. I have Albertville Mayor Tracy Honey with us, Marshall County Legislative Director Jennifer Amos, Albertville Airport Director Mark Chestnut, from Albertville, the Senior Vice President from Aviation Service Partners Lionel Hamilton, and from Birmingham, Mr. Del Molinax from Kaiser Aircraft. Thank you all for being with us today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any other guests? Let's move into our agenda. The first bill up is HB 456. This is a bill that, I'm sorry, Karen, would you call the bill, please?
House Bill 456 by Representative Garrett.
Thank you. 456. This is a bill that attempts to correct, I think, an oversight. But under our code, all interest on money held by the state goes into the general fund unless otherwise specified. And it's come to our attention through the budget process that interest on the advancement technology funds are not part of that exception that would require that money be retained in the education trust fund. So say that again, the interest earned on the rolling reserve and the new savings account remain in the education trust fund. The interest on A&T money right now is going to the general fund. And I think when this was contemplated several years ago, we didn't contemplate the balances that we've had or the interest rates we've had. So this would just simply amend the current law to identify that the Advancement Technology Fund interest would remain in the Education Trust Fund. Any questions or comments? Move favor report Representative Baker, second Representative Lovern. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? I suspect we'll hear from our general fund folks about this, but anyway, I just want to thank you for that. I need to step out for just a second, so I'm going to hand the gavel over to Representative Keel.
Clerk, call the next bill.
House Bill 269 by Representative Colvin.
Representative Colvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't lie, I'm a little nervous today bringing a sales or a tax exemption to our own committee, but I hope after I explain this, y'all can hopefully approve, give this a favorable report, and then a little more nervous after how Representative Drummond beat me up on the floor yesterday. So, but committee today, I have a bill, HB 269. So it's pretty technical and pretty specific tax exemption right now we have in Alabama that I'm trying to expand on. So under existing law, right now, if you are an aircraft company that is hubbed in Alabama, you get a sales and lease tax exemption when you do your called MRO, maintenance, repair, and overhaul work inside of Alabama. So that's, for instance, so I have with me some guests today. Lionel Hamilton from Albertville. He works as a Senior Vice President of Aviation Service Partners in Albertville, and Del Molinax, he's the CEO of Kaiser Aircraft in Birmingham. There's about 4 businesses in Alabama who do this type of work. Aviation Service Partners in Albertville, Kaiser Aircraft in Birmingham, Commercial Jet in Dothan, and Airbus. So right now the way our tax code is we are other states have taken advantage of our tax code the way it's written. And the reason why is right now, if you are not hubbed in Alabama, in an aircraft company, you do not get this tax exemption, which sounds great. We want to benefit Alabama companies first. I completely understand that, but the problem is the way the code is written. We have really hindered the opportunity for these companies to get job opportunities. So I'm going to do my best to explain how that process works, and if y'all have any questions that go above my pay grade, Lionel or Dale will be happy to jump in and back me up. So right now, AirCap is the largest lessor of airplanes in the world. They lease and sell to Delta, United, American, and they use these MRO companies across the country to do the maintenance work, refurbish the inside of these airplanes. It's a big process, a lot of jobs. I mean, for instance, when you land these types of job or contracts, you're talking 20 technicians at $35 an hour, 2 engineers at $45 an hour, 2 asset managers at $40 an hour, and 2 supervisors making over $100,000. So it's great jobs. The projects will last anywhere from 15 to 125 days. I think it's blue-collar jobs, the type we are looking to attract right now in Alabama where we do have a void. And so what would happen is AirCap, who leases these airplanes all across the world, when a contract, let's say with Delta, is up, they've run out of their lease and they want to give that plane back to AirCap. AirCap will then find one of these MRO companies across the country to do the MRO work. And like I said, it takes months to do that work, provides great high-paying jobs. And when that process is over, AirCap will then release or sell those airplanes back to Delta, back to American, back to United, companies that are not hubbed in Alabama. Well, since those companies are not hubbed in Alabama, they do not qualify for our sales and lease tax exemption. So what is happening is AirCap, Delta, United are steering away business from Alabama to other states who have this specific sales tax and lease tax exemption. So in theory, after talking to all the businesses in Alabama that do this, they will all concur that they do not currently have these opportunities because AirCap and Delta and these companies will straight up tell them, we're going to go to Arizona or we're going to another state where we get the exemption because you are talking a lot of money for these contracts, and 4% is a lot of money when you add it up to these types of contracts. So what I'm asking today from the committee is to remove this sales and lease tax exemption for companies that are hubbed outside of Alabama. In theory, it should not hurt our budget because it's currently not happening in Alabama. What we are doing, we are going to level the playing field with other states to allow our Alabama businesses to get these job opportunities, and in theory, which would give their employees, money to spend on sales tax in the community, new income tax. So in theory, it actually could help our budget, but there's no doubt it's a pro-business bill. There is an amendment I think you all have in your binder. What it does, it just clarifies that the sales and lease tax exemption only applies to the state portion. We've been pretty consistent with that this year. I wanted to add that. And then there's also, we are just redefining the aircraft that are eligible. Department of Revenue wanted us to add some language redefining the aircraft that is eligible for the exemption. Basically, the main thing is we added, that it needed a certified air carrier that's holding a certificate of public convenience. We needed that public convenience language because they think they had found a loophole basically where, Brock Colvin could go register a plane in Delaware and buy it here and get a sales tax exemption. That certainly was not my intention. So we added that public convenience language to tighten that up to make sure we're accomplishing our true intent. With that, Mr. Chairman, committee, I'll be happy to answer any questions or defer to Dale or Lionel if y'all need any more information.
Okay, any questions? Representative Drummond?
I actually think this is a good bill.
Hey.
But I read it last night, and I'm glad that you explained it because I was not that technical. But do you know how much money, or can you put a dollar amount on how much the companies like an Airbus would benefit from having this?
I think Lionel or Dale, would that be okay, Mr. Chairman, if I defer to them on that for the specifics? Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Here, Lionel, you want to?
Hey, good morning. Lionel Hamilton. So to answer your question about the amount of money, it varies, right? So when these airplanes transfer from airlines, let's say American to Breeze Airways, you've got to repaint the airplane. You've got to strip the interior out to make it look like Breeze Airways. The cockpit has to be exactly the same as every other Breeze airplane. So there's a ton of work. On top of that, normally there's the heavy maintenance checks that's required on the plane before the new airlines gets it. So with that being said, those aircraft are going to range up to maybe 20,000 man hours with the most, painting, interior, and heavy checks. But they're probably all going to average around 12,000 man hours. So that's going to put you in the $800 to $1 million per airplane in revenues that would come from it. And that's just kind of a heavy check. When you start painting the airplane, which these guys can do in Birmingham, you're adding several $100,000 more on top of it. So it's a lot of revenue that we're missing. To state, Arizona's a big one, and Arkansas that are getting all these leased airplanes. So did I answer your question, ma'am?
Yes. And at the appropriate time, I'd like to give the bill a favorable report.
Okay. All right.
Will you note that I gave it a favorable report?
I will say, that's twice this year you've given me a favorable report, so I'd say we're good. We're
Representative
even
Alvin
now.
will note that. Representative Baker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too, as Representative Drummond, I am in support of the bill. However, I did notice on the fiscal note, looking at this, could be an increase or a decrease, so it's by an undetermined amount. With that, then I wonder if the sponsor would be receptive to a sunset, just for us to sort of evaluate where we are.
I think that'd be a wise decision. Maybe, I don't know, how long are you thinking? I certainly want to give us time to get appropriate data to see how it affected it. So, any idea how long?
3 years.
Okay, be fine.
Okay.
And I talked, Dustin can answer this better than me. I worked with him in the Department of Revenue and a vendor from Revenue who specifies an aviation tax code. And it's just such a specific thing they do. Revenue doesn't collect that specific of data, so there's no way to tell, which is why I contacted every company in Alabama that does it to ask them, basically, how much business do you do? And they all concurred it was, we lose every bit of this to other states. So in theory, it should not, but a sunset's a good decision to see if that's accurate.
Well, thank you for your posture on that then. I think that would just give us the opportunity to reevaluate then, and hopefully we would be reauthorizing then in 3 years' time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Representative Ellis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of thoughts. First, on the sunset, one, I just want to make sure, I don't know the length of time some of these rehabs take, but we don't want to create a situation where year 2 we start losing out to Arizona again because they quit sending them here because
That's a good point.
of the timing of it. So just think about that as a sponsor. But how many, do we get any of these contracts now, or are we losing them all?
Well,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
And on the sunset, we may need to bump that up, then that's a good point. And I guess to argue against it now, the data is so specific, I don't know how we'll be able to tell what money we lost from that if that did happen, since revenue doesn't collect that anyway. I'm still comfortable with a sunset, but I think probably increasing that would be a wise decision, because I think some of these contracts, I think Deltas and AirCaps want to see that they're going to get that benefit for a while. But would you be okay with bump that up to at least 5 years?
Five would be okay.
Thank you.
We can do either way. Dustin, is that something we can go ahead and?
Okay, is there another amendment?
Yes.
Just the one I had, someone needs to offer the one I talked about earlier.
Okay.
I make a motion to adopt the amendment that was presented by Representative Colvin.
Okay, motion, Representative Stubbs. Second, Representative Lawrence. All in favor, say yay.
Yay.
And opposed? It passes. Okay, and then I think
we got one more.
we got one more coming. We can
Just carry it over for the time being and get back to it? Or
okay, we'll carry it over for now, and we'll come back at the end of the meeting.
Perfect. Thank you.
We have a public hearing for SB 278. I think we'll go ahead with that now. Senator Gavan is in the room. So Senator Gavan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I was surprised to find out, as many of my colleagues were, that our teachers and coaches and lunchroom workers and bus drivers didn't have workers' compensation coverage. This came out of a lawsuit against the state of Alabama for not following the law. Right now, the law is that basically the Board of Adjustments is supposed to handle these pursuant to workers' compensation law, and all of the individuals on that board testified truthfully. They don't follow a law. And so this bill is an attempt to solve that issue, to give our education employees workers' compensation benefits. A couple of things I would note. Now, this originally started out including the junior colleges. And they did not want to be included with it, so an amendment was passed, I think in committee, but nonetheless, that removed the junior college system from this. So we're talking about K through 12. And some concerns have come up on a couple of things. One was how would basically the administrative law judges is what I would call them, how they would be appointed. They would be appointed by a list from the Bar Association. So the bar would be in control of who that was, and they would have the people that were trained in workers' compensation. I'm like, for instance, I could not be one of those because I do not do workers' comp. And don't know actually a whole lot about it. Don't want to know a whole lot about it. Have learned more about it than I want to know. That's one concern. There has been a concern about the board makeup. And I'm presuming that you're not going to vote this today, that it'll just be the public hearing. So over the next week, should this come back up, I'll be working with one or more members of this committee to propose, to ask that they propose an amendment to increase the number of directors to 5. So that's one thing that would be coming forward if this were to progress along. And other than that, I'd entertain any questions I can answer or yield to the people that want to comment.
Sorry, thank you. Sorry for the interruption there. Thank you for presenting your bill today. Welcome to the committee. I do think we want to discuss this, maybe have some discussions following today. We won't be voting today, but any questions of the sponsor before we have the public hearing? Okay, if not, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We have 5 speakers, 3 in support, 2 in opposition. The first in support, Dr. Allison King with AEA.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, 2 minutes, please.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, committee. Public education employees are some of the only workers in Alabama without the protection of Workers' Compensation Act or a state-funded injury trust fund. Just last year, an Alabama teacher was assaulted by a young elementary school student. She was kicked and beaten, left with broken ribs, broken prescription glasses, and many bruises. Because of this, she had to miss several weeks of work for recovery, and to top it all off, there was no reimbursement to the educator for her out-of-pocket medical costs or leave time. The teacher, who was a teacher of the year at her school and the most requested professional in the building, resigned her position due to the lack of support for both her injury and student discipline enforcement. After 10 years personally as a classroom teacher, 9 years as an AEA director that served approximately 60 schools, I could give you dozens of stories just like this one. All in all, I have lived this work for 20 years and seen it firsthand. If employees didn't have to fulfill classroom commitments today, I could have a line of them ready to tell you their stories. Sadly, these situations are real and have become reality in our schools. Regrettably, we don't currently have a system that adequately addresses on-the-job injuries for education employees. Under our present system, employees must come out of pocket for any expenses they incur as a result of their injury, and then they hope and pray for reimbursement. There is nothing that requires the current system via the Board of Adjustment to reimburse employees. It doesn't matter if there's no dispute about the OJI or about the expense. They don't have to pay anyone anything. For the few that are fortunate enough to receive a reimbursement, they have to jump through many hoops and often wait several years before they see any money come back to them. Additionally, the current system provides limited benefits under the sick leave law and PHIB. Once an injured education employee uses all their sick leave days, if they're unable to return to work, they are terminated and they lose their insurance. This is not what happens to other employees in our state, and we have a broken system that needs to change. This legislation is important. It puts education employees on par with what we're already doing for state employees and many others. I thank the sponsor for his diligent work in bringing this bill as a resolution to the problem in our schools. The legislation received unanimous vote in both committee and on the floor of the Senate. I ask for your support.
Thank you. Speaking in opposition, Ashley McLean, School Superintendent Association.
Good morning. So let me just start by saying that we're not in opposition of creating a program that addresses this issue. It is absolutely an issue where public education employees are currently being served is not working, that they don't fit under the Board of Adjustments. It's just not a good place for it. Our concern is with this particular vehicle because it creates a 3-member board, and we've been working with the sponsor. We very much appreciate his willingness to work with us. He's heard us out. I think he understands our concerns. But a 3-member appointed board over a minimum $15 million program, a minimum $15 million, is not comfortable for us. Go a little bit further than that, it allows them to establish a TPA or contract with a TPA, a third-party administrator. But there's no information about the TPA. What qualifications would that group have? Would they have any medical background? Would they have any workman comp background? Like, where would that come from? Who would oversee that? Where's the oversight for that? Again, a 3-member board. That's concerning for us, and it's appointments. So nobody on the board has to have any kind of a specialty or knowledge of workman's comp or injury or medical or even the public education profession. The state superintendent would have, so the state superintendent would have an appointment there. That's our concern. Also, the benefits that are laid out in this bill are greater than the benefits that state employees have. Just a couple that are concerning that I spoke with the sponsor about yesterday. Occupational disease is listed as an on-the-job injury that could be covered. An example of occupational disease is carpal tunnel syndrome. Gradual deterioration, that's an injury that happens over time or caused by the work that you do. That could be a bus mechanic that uses tools or a torque wrench over and over again, and it causes gradual deterioration. On-the-job injury is exactly what Dr. King just explained. It's an injury that happened at school by virtue of their work. It's not something that should happen as a time because it's something that happened as a job that you did. So we support the idea of creating something for them. The state has a program right now. Thank you. And we're not asking for you to send them there, but we're just saying there's a program established that would be something to mirror them after.
Thank you. Mary Ann Leonard, a Tuscaloosa educator. Can we take the microphone to you? Would you rather us do that?
Hi. I work for University Place Elementary School. I was running after one of my students on the playground. I hit my head on the playground pole, and now I've become disabled. The Board of Adjusters I didn't have insurance, and they would not help me. I don't know what else to say.
Well, thank you for being here. Thank you. And I'm sorry for your situation. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
But I need help.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Can someone help her, please? Representative Baumann?
Yeah, I would just also thank you for being here. And I went to University Place Elementary, so glad to hear about it. Thank you.
Sally Smith, Alabama Association of School Boards.
Good morning. On behalf of school boards, we know we have a responsibility to take after our education employees who are injured on the job. And so that's not our issue. Our issue is to work with the sponsor about the mechanics of this bill. But to put this in context, and it is surprising, there's a reason school boards don't have traditional workers' comp. State law that says we don't have to provide it until it's funded by the legislature. So that's the issue right here. The second point is we have a patchwork of programs that help our injured educators that in some cases are actually better than workers' comp. There's a state law that gives every employee 90 days of paid leave. That's full paid leave. That's 18 weeks. Traditional workers' comp programs usually only give a 2/3 pay. So we do have some provisions to take care of our employees. Of course, we continue to provide their health insurance, but there are some gaps, and I think this is a great opportunity to talk about the gaps and the kinks. One of the gaps is in terms of disability. Under the retirement systems, an injured employee, if they're vested, they can get disability. So we've got that covered. The problem comes when they're not vested. So that's one of the gaps that we need to cover. One of the other gaps comes in those payments like co-pays, deductibles. That's not covered by the insurance that we provide. And so those are the things that traditionally have gone to the Board of Adjustments. That process is not working well. So I want to be clear that we are addressing many of the needs of our injured employees, but there are some kinks and gaps. And our concern with 278 is that it's a little bit of a Cadillac of a plan, and it's duplicative of other state resources.
Time.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Just hit pause and look at a different way of going about it.
Thank you. Speaking in support, Kenyon Moody, educator from Montgomery. Kenyon Moody, are you here? Okay, they're not here. Okay. So, okay. Mr. Moody? Yeah, you're recognized. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I work for Samuel County Middle School right now, but I've been a math teacher for about 5-6 years in Alabama. And I was in a student-teacher basketball game. And I was pushed by a kid in the air, which caused me to have multiple knee surgeries. And I had an agreement with the Board of Adjustment, but something happened and we went to the trial, and then it turned out that I'm just not gonna get anything. So I really don't know what happened, you know.
Thank you for sharing. When did your incident occur, your accident occur?
It was April 29th of 2023.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you working now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well,
yeah, I'm
thank
back to work, but I mean, I still deal with it a lot. Full ACL tear, meniscus tear, went back to work, tore my meniscus again, so.
Well, thank you. Thank you for serving our state and our students, and we appreciate you being here today with us.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That concludes our public hearing. Senator Gavan. I have just a couple of questions. One, a little perplexed. I've heard several people say that we don't deny we need to address this. We have a problem. My question is, what is the urgency? What has brought this to our attention now if it's not been in place for so long?
This is really, I guess, came to light out of the lawsuit that is actually ongoing against the state of Alabama for not following the law. And so this is a solution for it. I think it was envisioned apparently in that ultimately it would require a legislative fix really to address this situation. I would say, in addressing one of the other concerns about the repetitive injuries, I think that's an argument. I'm open to listening to that. Obviously, it takes multiple people to tango on these things. So that's not an objection that I hold. I understand that those can be serious injuries, but where I am really concerned about is things that are from the extreme situations of the previous witness to somebody breaking their leg, car accident, whatever. There could be a number of things. The one thing I learned about workers' comp in law school is you don't get much, but you're supposed to get it fast, and apparently that's not really what's happening here. But willing to work with the people that have objections, work with the committee members on some amendments. I think the easy solution is where we come up with expanding the board. I just don't think that's a problem. Having 2 more board members probably appointed. I mean, there's been different suggestions about who should, and I don't really, easy ways, I guess, go to the governor. We could go with the speaker and the lieutenant governor. It doesn't really matter to me how we do that. But I think that's something that would be probably a priority of all this, and there may be some other, nibbling around the edges, I would say.
Okay, any other questions for Senator Gavan by members? Time is short. I think this is an important issue, and I think that in the next few days we should pull together a working group to kind of see if we can come up with some solution to address. Because I didn't hear anybody that really is firmly saying we don't have a problem. And I guess I want to understand better what we need to do to address it. So committee members need to have a special meeting to deal with this, depending on the calendar and what things look like. But it's a Senate bill, so we'll be pulling a working group together to try to work on it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So that concludes our public hearing. Let's go back to the agenda. I think, is amendment ready for Representative Colvin's bill yet? It's still working on it. Okay, we'll go to the next bill. HP, would you call my bill? Yeah.
House Bill 441 by Representative Garrett.
Thank you. I'll just stay here. What happened was that when the game plan was passed last session, it included one of the criteria for eligibility for using incentive was you had to be considered eligible for the new markets tax credit. Last year, the federal government changed the map areas determined eligible for use of the new markets tax credit. So they changed the definition of what that was, and that change knocked out a lot of projects and communities and programs that were eligible for state incentives under Growing Alabama, Innovate Alabama, Alabama Jobs Act, and Innovate Alabama definitions of board powers, because we refer to that federal definition. What this would do would be to basically modify the current law to add the phrase, as those communities were identified as of January 1, 2015, or in such a community thereafter. In other words, making sure that old federal definition continues in the state law, because that's what we want to do with innovation projects and these other incentives for the state. So basically, feds change the definition. We just follow that definition change. We want to make sure that what we had intended at the time that we adopted those incentives stays in effect. So we're taking care of that in the language. Any questions? Is there a motion? Representative Wood makes a motion for approval. Representative Colvin seconds. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Bill's given favorable report. Thank you. Next, clerk, please call the next bill.
House Bill 356 by Representative Keel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 356 is a tax credit for pregnancy crisis centers. We passed this bill out of this committee and in the House last year. It failed to pass the Senate, and so I'm back asking again to help mothers and expectant mothers and mothers who have already given birth in a critical time in their life. We're asking for really a hand up here to help those folks.
You have an amendment, I understand. Is there any changes beyond what's in the amendment from the bills we passed last year?
No, it's just like last year. The amendment allows mobile clinics to also participate, is what the amendment does.
Okay, any questions for the sponsor?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adopt the amendment as presented in our packet here, allowing mobile clinics.
Second by Representative Baker, motion by Representative Stubbs. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed? The amendment's adopted. Now we're back on the bill as amended. Any questions? Representative Colvin moves for favorable report for the bill. I'm sorry, Representative Daniels.
Hey, how you doing, Mr. Vice Chairman?
Good.
A couple of questions on this bill that have been brought to my attention. I just want to make certain that we got clarity on. There's about 3 or 4 questions. What type of pregnancy center is eligible for donations to be deducted? What type of pregnancy center does not have a goal of a healthy birth of a baby? And then the other question is, when a hopeful mother is referred to for legal abortions due to a moral risk to her life from the pregnancy complication, does that mean that her goal wasn't a healthy birth? Even if she wanted the baby up until that moment of termination, or even if you think that the pregnancy for the rest of her life. So it's just like 3 or 4 questions that.
That was 3 or 4 questions. That was 3 or 4 questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe
Let's
you
take them
can.
one at a time. What's the first question?
Okay. What type of pregnancy center is eligible for donations to be deducted?
So those are identified in the bill, and I can locate those if you give me just a second. If you'll look at line 34, those are the 4 points that should be made about a pregnancy crisis center and how they are determined. So it starts on line 34 and goes through line 47. And then the second question, you'll have to remind me.
What type of pregnancy center does not qualify to have a goal of a healthy birth of a baby?
Well, those that do not meet the requirements, again, on line 34 through 47 would not qualify.
The goal of a healthy baby, is that in the bill? Or is that, is that in the bill anywhere? Is that a?
Yeah, I don't see it defined. Let me go back to this.
I mean, as I read it, the pregnancy centers are defined in section C. So if you're not in section C, you're not. Okay. 44, 45 officers. Okay. So section on page 4, on line 41, offers services at no cost to the client for the express purpose of providing assistance to women in order to carry their pregnancy to term, encouraging parenting or adoption, preventing abortion, and promoting healthy childbirth. That's where that's mentioned.
Okay.
And what was the last question?
It's when a hopeful mother is referred to for illegal abortion due to a moral risk to her life from the pregnancy complications, does that mean that her goal wasn't a healthy birth? And even
our anti-abortion law now protects the mother's right if it's I see it as self-defense, but if the mother's health her life is in danger, then then it's permittable. Then I'm not sure how that is pertinent to this bill where we're talking about actual pregnant mothers. But I mean, if her life is in danger, our current anti-abortion law, and Terry's not here today, but it allows that to happen now. So I'm not sure how that is in the purview of this.
Well, we'll have more discussion about it, but it is, I don't want to go back and forth about it, but it is pertinent to this particular piece of legislation.
Okay.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Representative Drummond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Keel, am I reading this correctly? An individual can take advantage of this tax credit?
Yes.
Is this an individual or an individual who has an LLC or pregnancy center?
Well, now the tax credit would go to the person who's paying the taxes.
So individuals can donate to that organization.
Sure.
And they can get a tax credit. Does it specify who those individuals possibly could be?
Well, it could be any tax-paying Alabama, anybody in Alabama that is a taxpayer. They could give up to.
I don't see anywhere in the bill where it says somebody outside of Alabama. Would they also receive some sort of a credit if they go through someone else? I don't know. It's not clear to me.
I don't know what you mean by go through someone else, but if it's someone who owes an Alabama tax, then they could take up to half of their tax burden as a credit.
Well, like 79, and I'm sure all of us are always giving to charitable organization. What if there's a charitable organization that is receiving money from outside of Alabama, even outside of the United States? Will that organization still get tax credits if they're getting money from donors who are outside?
Well,
I think the tax credit's to the person making the donation, not the organization receiving the donation. So if a person from outside the state makes a contribution and they're also filing Alabama tax return and owe taxes, they can deduct up to 50% of that contribution to the organization. Is that correct?
Line 79 addresses
I
who
see
can
that
receive
in
the donation.
50% in there, and I'm wondering why 50% and not higher.
So that they don't give all of their, so the state gets some money from taxes.
Just a cap.
And it can be spread around. It's a cap.
Okay, do you have, because you know I have a problem with this bill, so I'll wait till I get on the floor, but these pregnancy centers, I know that you're promoting healthy birth, but in the event that those births are not healthy, how are we dealing with those in this bill?
Well,
so, I asked you this question on the floor, and, I have a problem with you being a male always carrying these type of bills.
Sure. Well, I think that to be able to help a mother is not a female or male perspective. My wife is a mother, and I love her and support her, and I think we should help mothers where we can.
And I appreciate that, but no matter how much you love or care for those women, you still will not be able to give birth. I don't care how much, just like, you got some things I don't have.
Well, that's true, but I still have a compassion for mothers, and so
I think we passed a law about this yesterday.
You could argue that point, but I'm not going to argue that point. I still have a compassion for mothers and unborn children.
How much money do you think you anticipate, if you only put it at 50%, that the state would receive as a result of giving this tax credit to those individuals or to those who may donate to these centers?
The cap is $10 million.
My understanding is there's a similar program in other states. I know Mississippi, and I think they've had a high level of participation. And have they hit the cap? I believe they have.
They have. And they're looking at expanding from 10 to 15 million. Right. So this is fashioned after Mississippi.
So it's based on Mississippi's law as well?
No, I just offer that as an example of someone that I know. I have a cousin who's a senator in Mississippi, and I asked him about this program, and he said it worked really well over there, so that's why I'm
And is it for their pregnancy center?
It is.
Yeah.
And I spoke with Chairman Garrett's cousin last year.
I'm sure he's a male too, right?
Yes, by virtue of he is a male.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
Make a motion to give a bill a favorable report as amended.
Representative Stubbs makes a motion favorable report. Representative Wood, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No. Bill's given a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Representative Colvin, is your amendment ready?
Okay. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I believe Dustin has said that he would give an explanation as to how we might need to move through this to get the amendment.
Thank you.
If that'd be permitted.
Good. Sure.
Mr. Chairman, to accomplish what the sponsor wanted to do in his original amendment, as well as put the sunset provisions on each of those, we actually need to incorporate that into the original amendment. So I think the appropriate motion would be to reconsider the amendment that the committee has already adopted, and to lay that on the table, and to adopt this amendment that was just produced that incorporates the original amendment plus there's actually 4 places that the sunset provision gets added in, and it was, the language is the exemption provided by this subdivision shall expire on September 30, 2029, which I think accomplishes that 5-year window, and that's in 4 places in the new amendment.
Okay. And this exempts state and I mean, county and municipal taxes as well, right? Unless there's an opt-in, is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, there's a provision in there that similar to the other bills that the committee has passed that allows the county and municipal governments to adopt the same exemption by resolution or ordinance.
Okay. Is there any question about what he just described, the process? If not, we'll need someone to make a motion to reconsider the amendment. Representative Ellis makes a motion to reconsider. Second, Representative Keel. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Someone should make a motion to table the original amendment. Moved by Representative Ellis, second by Representative Baker. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? And now, is there a motion to adopt this amendment? Representative Baker moves to adopt this amendment. Second, Representative Keel. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, the amendment is adopted. So now we have the bill as amended. I do have one question because I'm sorry I was not here for the discussion. But explain to me I think my understanding is this is the fiscal note says it's undetermined, but this is not something that's being utilized now. Can you just kind of speak to that? Maybe you did already, but just for my benefit.
Yes, sir. So I, worked with Dustin and Revenue Department on this, trying to get an idea of that fiscal note, and it was just such a specific area. They don't collect data that specific. So, basically what I did, I worked with the guy here, had it from Albertville earlier, Del Molinax from Birmingham. He has a business that does a similar thing, commercial jet in Dothan and Airbus in Mobile. And all four had confirmed that they all lose this business to other states because of our tax code. So in theory, it should not impact our budget since we added the amendment tightening up the definitions of aircraft companies that are eligible.
So that business is not here in the state now. The hope is that would be in the come to.
Yes, because we're losing these to I think it was Arizona and Florida and other states. So the theory is that this puts us on a level playing field with those states to get those job opportunities back. So in theory, we can get an individual sales tax and income tax bump from the job opportunities.
And of course, there's been a lot of emphasis on the aerospace industry in the state, and we had a project down I know in Auburn recently to training program for Delta mechanics and others. So it's consistent with that theme. But I guess the idea is that it's not like these businesses are here. We're exempting. These are businesses we're hoping that would come here, and maybe they would have a benefit here, but they would also employ people and do other things that would generate positive.
They're not getting those, so we're expanding that opportunity.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Representative Drummond moves for favorable report as amended. Second, Representative Baker. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Bill's given a favorable report. Thank you. Is that it? I believe we moved through our agenda, so just keep. Oh, I'm sorry. Now we have a presentation, HudsonAlpha Institute for Biotechnology. Mrs. Kelly East. Good to have you with us today.
Hi. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. It's a pleasure to be here. I was here about a year ago, and I'm excited to be back. Thank you for giving me a little bit of time on in this meeting to share with you to extend our thanks and to share with you a little bit about what we've been doing at HudsonAlpha, specifically in our education mission area with what we've done with our education funding for the past year. Let me also wish you a happy DNA Day. Technically it's tomorrow, but we'll celebrate today. I was actually down in Dothan yesterday with 700 third graders extracting DNA from strawberries to celebrate there as well. But it's great to be here. I've got a packet that you should have that's got some information in it that I want to talk through a little bit and also highlight on the right side. There's this booklet that we publish every year. This probably looks familiar. This is our guidebook that we write and distribute not only to you guys, but to every school in the state of Alabama that has a whole bunch of stories about what's happened in the fields of genetics and biotech in the past year. Some of them are discoveries from HudsonAlpha, some of them are elsewhere, but there are all kinds of things from viruses that enter cells clamped onto another virus like a vampire to new treatments for cancer and everything in between. So you've got a copy of that as well. But we really, for the funding that we receive from the Education Fund, we focus on the programs that we run that have a statewide reach. So things like our teacher trainings that we do. We've got 700 teachers that attended HudsonAlpha professional development workshops last year across the state, whether they came to Huntsville for a week in the summer or we went to them, all across the state doing 1- and 2-day professional development workshops. The 30,000 Alabama kids that are using our resources in their classroom every year, where we develop activities that don't require coming to Hudson Alpha, that we can bring that cutting edge content to them and link the really cool discoveries and the career connections to the course of study and arm teachers with the materials they need to do that in their classrooms, as well as our field trip program, where we do have student groups from all across the state that walk through our doors and come into our teaching labs at Hudson Alpha. I think 1,800 students last year came to Hudson Alpha for a field trip. And we would love that to be every student, but we are excited for those that can come, and then also how we can get our resources into classrooms to have a much broader impact than the ones that can walk through our doors in Huntsville. So a couple of things that I wanted to highlight for you. You've got in your folder some quotes and some pictures of the views that we get every day when we get to go to work and see those aha moments of children. But specifically, I wanted to draw your attention to the map, and you probably saw a map similar to this last year. It's kind of a heat map that if you go backwards to the beginning of Hudson Alpha, pretty much every high school in the state of Alabama has done something with us, which is really impactful. But I really like to look at the last 2 years because we want to make sure that we're maintaining active engagement with our schools. And so this is looking at all of our public high schools and whether they're engaged with us, whether our activities are in their classrooms, whether their teachers are coming to trainings, whether their students are coming for field trips. Are we having that engagement? We're really proud that the map I gave you last year, the number started with a 6. I think it was 64% of Alabama public high schools in the last 2 years, and now that number is 70. Which is great, but there's still 30% more to go. And this gives us a good litmus test of where is it that we need to be investing more effort to get to know some people and make connections and get either our resources into those classrooms or get those students engaged at Hudson Alpha. And so I want to keep bringing that back to you and seeing that number grow and talk about how we're kind of investing in those schools. I also wanted to highlight a brand new project that I think is in the last page, almost the next to last page. We've worked a lot at the middle school and high school levels, and we've heard from teachers and our partners at AMSTI that there's genetics that's showing up in the 3rd grade course of study. Now, it doesn't say DNA, but it talks about traits and about how you can track traits through families, and that's the building blocks of genetics. And so there's been a gap where teachers have said, we want more hands-on ways to connect to that course of study. And so we've worked for the last couple of years to develop a set of activities. It has to do with horses and puppy dogs, which is really approachable to kids where they can track those through families and talk about differences and traits. So we developed an elementary module. It's a set of 4 activities. We had input from teachers in that. And we actually, in October, had a training at Hudson Alpha for all of the AMSTI specialists, where they came to us, we trained them, and then they've gone back and trained their teachers. And we've put all of those materials in those AMSTI hubs. So we now have Hudson Alpha kits and resources, not just at the middle school and high school level, but in that elementary grade band as well, where it fits in that curriculum. And we've had great feedback, and we're excited to see that kind of grow over this next year as well. But we are so incredibly thankful for the work we get to do. We at Hudson Alpha, there's scientists doing all kinds of cutting-edge research, and we get a front seat to that. We get to see those discoveries, and it's really our honor and our unique position to be able to figure out how to take that cutting-edge content to our teachers and our students in Alabama and highlight the work that's happening in Alabama in science and the jobs that we want those students to be excited about stepping into and bringing that authentic science into the classrooms in ways that work for students and teachers. So with that, I just want to say thank you for your support and letting us do what we do and impact the state of Alabama through our K-12 student and teacher programs. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and I would love, you've got a welcome invitation anytime you're up near Huntsville to come and visit us and see our education programs in person. So thank you so much.
We certainly appreciate you being here. We appreciate what Hudson Alpha means to our state, and it's mind-boggling the things that you do. And Vice Chairman Keel was just asking me had I been there, and he was talking about how amazing the facilities were. So I would encourage our members to take advantage of your invitation. So appreciate that, but really appreciate the service you provide and the educational advancements you're making. You're very important to our state. Any comments or questions? Well, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Give our regards to your colleagues, please.
I will, absolutely.
Okay, members, just a little update. I understand the Senate will probably have the education budget in committee next week. So once they do that, we'll see where they go and what happens from there. But we'll be days are getting short, but we'll get through it. So and then the other thing is the public hearing we had today. I do think we're going to be working on that diligently in the next few days, see if we can come up with some solution. We may have a special meeting to address that, but just be aware of that. Appreciate your diligence and all your work, and enjoy the break before we get back on budget times again. So, any comments or questions? Thank you. We're adjourned.